beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot's dream that sees beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
You know, many special things have happened on this day down through history. 3 American presidents have died on the 4th of July: John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe. Calvin Coolidge was born on the July 4th, 1872. West Point opened in 1802. The song America was sung for the first time on July 4th, 1832 in Boston. Alaska and Hawaii both became states on the 4th of July. Slavery was abolished in the state of New York on the 4th of July in 1845. And in that great document delivered on July the 4th, 1776, we read of a belief that all people have rights given to them by their Creator. The document has only 1,321 words. It takes just 8 minutes to read. God is mentioned 4 times, twice at the beginning, twice at the end. And the purpose of the declaration was to separate us officially from the repression and the authority of England. And the very act of signing the declaration said to the world, I'm a traitor. I'm a traitor to my native England. And the very people who did that said, I'm a criminal. I'm a fugitive from London's justice. And we need to remember who the men were who were willing to sign that. You probably don't know all their names. You probably know a few of their names. But there was 56 men who signed it. All but 2 of them were married. Each had an average of 6 children. 24 were lawyers, 9 were merchants, 14 were farmers, 4 were doctors, and 1, hallelujah, was a preacher. Got to throw one of those in there. We're not talking about low-life, rebels, drifters. That's not who we're talking about who signed the Declaration of Independence. We're talking about educated, civilized men who were willing to sacrifice everything they had for a cause that they believed in. And history shows us that they paid a price for that bravery. Today, America has numerous faults: crime, teenage pregnancy, abortion, racism, homosexuality, murder. The list seems endless. But I think you will agree with me, in spite of all her faults, America is still the greatest place on earth to live. And so to understand that, let's examine 3 of America's unique characteristics. Just want to briefly show you these. You know these and probably understand them. But the first one is this: America's greatness. America's greatness. What makes America such a great nation? Maybe she's great in her beauty. If you've traveled over the country, you know America is beautiful from the northwest to the southwest to the northeast to the southeast and everywhere in between. America is known for her beauty, but we all know that Tennessee is the most beautiful state, obviously, that there is. But that's not what makes America great. There's a lot of countries who are communist ruled. They're beautiful in their natural resources. But America is great for her freedoms. That's what makes America great. The world longs for the freedoms found here in America. That's why so many people are trying to get in. But here at home, there seems to be a real trend for anti-Americanism, anti-patriotism. And it's amazing how quickly our allegiance can change. I read the story about a woman whose husband had passed away. And so she sent in a column for the obituary. It was an article, basically. She wrote all this stuff about her husband. It was 4 pages long. Can you imagine an obituary that long? The paper told her, "Ma'am, it'll be $1 per word." And she angrily replied, "Well, then just put John Smith died." They responded by saying, "Ma'am, there's a minimum of 7 words." She said, "Well, put John Smith died, 2015 Chevy for sale." That's all you got to put in obituary. How quickly our allegiance can change. Let me ask you this. Does our country even resemble what was intended? Do our homes and leaders have anything close to the same spirit? There's a movement out there to revise history. It's been going on since before I was even in college. They want to undermine the character and the integrity of our founding fathers, saying they weren't who we know they were. They were somebody else. They say they weren't motivated by principle. Oh, it was all about property. It was all about greed. It was all about a desire for wealth. But that's simply not true. If you know anything about history, you know that's not true. The men who signed the Declaration of Independence had far more to lose than they had to gain. Every one of those men, almost every one of them, were wealthy already. They didn't need any more money. They didn't need any more land. They were educated men of standing in their communities. They knew security and prosperity, but they felt something was more important than that, and it was freedom. Freedom that you have today. Freedom that you and I have to worship today. They knew that the penalty for treason was death, and they signed their names anyway. You probably know this guy who signed his name. His name is John Hancock. He was famous for signing twice as large as all others. Why did he do that? Why did he sign his name so big? Here's what he said. "Now His Majesty can read my name without his spectacles." I want him to see it. I want the king to see it. Stephen Hopkins, whose age caused his hand to tremble as he started to sign it, he looked up and he said to those other men who were there watching him sign it as they all were gathered there, he said, "Gentlemen, my hand trembles, but my heart does not." British ships were already nearing just a few miles off the coast when they were signing. New York, most of New York had been evacuated, and they were there being pursued. Some were already being captured and tortured, and of course many died because of the Declaration. We need to remember, every time we look at this flag, and you may not agree with everything that's going on under this flag, but every time we look at this flag, this red represents the blood of those who died so you can be free. Freedom. That's what those men signed that for. And this is a personal opinion, and you can take it or leave it. Anyone who burns that flag in ignorant demonstrations, I don't think that's called freedom of speech. I think it's high treason. If you don't like that flag, then get out from under that flag's country. You see, America's free economically, socially, politically, all because of those men who died for us, who set their life for freedom. You have freedom to protest, as we've seen the last few weeks. You have freedom to come here and worship. You have freedom to get up and speak. Listen to Psalm 33:6. "By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth." Creation. "He gathers the waters of the sea together as a heap. He lays up the deep in storehouses. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him, for he spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast." Creation. What's that got to do with America? Well, he created America, obviously, but verse 10 says this, "The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of people of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of His heart to all generations. America's greatness is because of God, and God's given it to us. The second point is this: America's God. America's God. Just as the revisionists want to rewrite history in order to undermine the character and the integrity of the founding fathers, they also want to undermine our godly heritage. They try to tell us this nation really wasn't founded upon God. There are really no Judeo-Christian values here. It wasn't founded upon that. And some people are in denial of their American roots. Even a South American president years and years ago said this: people come to my continent, South America, looking for gold, but those who go to North America were looking for God. And that's true. In 1620, a little band of people crossed the Atlantic Ocean in a sailboat. Now imagine this, 26 feet by 113 feet, the Mayflower. They landed at the Atlantic coast in the bitter cold of winter. We call them pilgrims. They weren't even called pilgrims until the 1800s. That's not what they were known as. They were known as separatists, because they left the hold of the Church of England. They didn't like what the Church of England was doing, what the Church of England was pushing on them. So they came to America, the New World. They stepped off the boat, and here's what they did. They signed a compact. It's called the Mayflower Compact. The second paragraph begins this way: for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. That's why we're here. That's why they came. Now, that first winter on those pilgrims, as we call them, was tough. The daily ration at times of food was, listen to this, 5 kernels of corn. Many died during the first 5 months. Just a few survived. In the fall of 1621, they reaped their very first harvest, 21 acres of corn. Their immediate response was to thank God. It said, as they wrote in their journals, and you can go back in history and read, they marched through the cornfields. They didn't have anywhere else to go. They just went through the cornfields, praising the Lord, singing this: the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. They just praised the Lord. And so on December 13th, they gathered together with 80 friendly Native Americans. They gathered together and they had a feast. And they didn't just eat. They celebrated 3 days of Thanksgiving. And here's what they did. It was 3 days of preaching and praying and singing and eating. Some school textbooks today say this, that the pilgrims and the natives met together just to thank each other. They loved each other so much. It was such a good harmony. They met together to thank each other. That's not true. They met together to thank the Lord. It was a weekend, a 3-day Thanksgiving. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln proclaimed a national Thanksgiving Day for the first time. In his proclamation, he made an important and accurate theological point. It's going to be on the screen. Read this. We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown. But we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. Less than 100 years after the Declaration, Abraham Lincoln said, we've forgotten God already. The Puritans were part of the Church of England as well. Like the separatists of the Church of England, they came here for religious freedom, but the Puritans wanted to keep the Church of England pure, so they brought the Church of England with them. We know that today as the Anglican Church or the Episcopal Church. But in the opening sequence of their charter called the New England Confederation, it says this: whereas we all came into these parts of America with one and the same end and aim, to advance the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ and to enjoy the liberties of the gospel in liberty and peace. Religious freedom. Benjamin Franklin, who was once challenged by having a political session open with prayer, they said, you shouldn't have politics and prayer mixed together. And here's what he said: I've lived, sir, a long time. The longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, it is probable that an empire can rise. Is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain who build it. Some Christians have been intimidated. And they've heard professors talk about so much about the separation of church and state. You can't have prayer, you can't have church and state together. They've actually started to believe that's true. In case you don't know, that phrase never appears in the Constitution. Separation of church and state. It's not there. It is, however, found in Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. It was coined in the United States from a letter from one of the principal framers of the Constitution. You know him as our third president, Thomas Jefferson. He wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association, assuring them that he would keep the government out of the church, not the other way around. He was saying, never again will there be a government-sponsored church like you had back in England. It'll never happen here, he said. Where everyone is forced to attend and support. You can check it out for yourself. The First Amendment never says anything about that. Actually, it says this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of people to peaceably, you get that one, don't you? Peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and all those other things are all there together. If there is such a thing as separation of church and state, it's intended as a one-way street. The government doesn't interfere with the church. Well, some say, no, they want to keep both separate. Well, let's think about it a second. I know this feels like you're in a history class this morning, but we need to relearn some of this. Our first president took the oath of office, raised his hand, and put his hand on the Bible. That tells me that he was interested in what was in here. There's no law that says the president has to do that, but he did it. The very first act of the very first president of the United States, you know what he did? He kissed the Bible as an act of, I'm going to follow what God says. The very next act of the president of the United States, the first president, was he held a 2-hour praise and worship session in Congress. Boy, do they need to do that again. He held worship together. How did they determine how Congress would be open every single session? Prayer. Who would lead in those prayers? Chaplains. Who pays for those chaplains? You and me, taxpayers. Can't tell me God wasn't put into the government. Does all that sound like they wanted to keep God out of the government? The very first acts. By the way, opening prayer is a mystery that we need to investigate. Why? Why is it that little boys and girls can't pray in schools, but great big congressmen can pray in Congress? Who decided to put "In God We Trust" on our coinage? It was adopted by Congress in 1956. In 1776, 11 of the 13 colonies were required that one had to be a Christian to be eligible to run for political office. Wow. In 1777, the Continental Congress voted to spend $300,000, their second year in existence, $300,000 to purchase Bibles to share with the nation, just to give away to people. 94% of the writings of the founding fathers of the United States contain quotations from the Holy Scriptures. The state constitutions of all 50 states mention God somewhere in them. Part of the Scripture, Proverbs 14:34, is inscribed, get this, above the Los Angeles City Hall door. You ready? Los Angeles. Righteousness exalts a nation. but sin is a reproach to any people. An image of Moses carrying the tablets of God's law faces the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Every time he or she stands in that well, they look up and see Moses standing there with the Ten Commandments. The Supreme Court itself begins each of its sessions with this phrase, God save the United States and this honorable court. Our founding fathers wanted God to be a part of our government. Listen to some more voices from the past. George Washington, in his farewell address, said this, "Do not let anyone claim tribute of American patriotism if they even attempt to remove religion from politics." Statesman Patrick Henry, "It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians, not on religion, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ." Our sixth president, John Quincy Adams, said this, "No book in the world deserves to be more unceasingly studied and so profoundly meditated upon as the Bible." Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th president, wrote this in 1917. "In this actual world, a churchless community, a community where men have abandoned and scoffed at or even ignored their religious needs, is a community on the rapid downgrade." Harry Truman, our 33rd president, he was not known to be a committed believer in Christ, but he understood the spiritual heritage of this nation. Here's what he said, "If men and nations would but live by the precepts of the ancient prophets and the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount, problems which now seem so difficult would soon disappear." Dwight Eisenhower in 1955 said, "Without God, there could be no American form of government, nor an American way of life. Recognition of the Supreme Being is the first, the most basic expression of Americanism. Thus the Founding Fathers of America saw it, and thus with God's help, it will continue to be." Ronald Reagan, "If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be one nation gone under." It's time for anti-God Americans to stop spewing the lies. Maybe the lies they've heard on the internet, wherever they've heard the lies, maybe in a classroom. And maybe they ought to do something. Maybe they ought to pick up a history book and read it and see our founding fathers wanted God as a part of our country. Have we made some mistakes in our country? You better believe we have. But for some reason, for some strange reason, God still keeps blessing us. So there's the greatness of America and her freedoms, and the God of America, the one and only true and living God, the Father of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But there's also America's guilt. The guilt of America. Look in verse 12 of Psalm 33. "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. The Lord looks from heaven. He sees all the sons of men. From the place of his dwelling, he looks on all the inhabitants of the earth. He fashions their hearts individually. He considers all their works. Individuals. God knows every single individual and what we do and what we think and how we practice our things and how we sin and how we disobey. He knows us individually." Verse 16, "No king is saved by the multitude of an army. A mighty man is not delivered by his great strength. A horse is a vain hope for safety, neither shall it deliver by any of its great strength. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him, on those who hope in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death and to keep them alive in famine." You see, sin has always been around. It's not just American sin, but it's sin. In God's eyes, it's all the same. So we know each nation, each generation are guilty of sins. We read in the Old Testament about Israel. They had a mess of sins. But God still blessed them. Sin, as a matter of fact, is going to be present until Jesus comes back. Isn't that right? We're not going to get rid of sin on the earth until Jesus comes back. But I think the real guilt of America lies in the indifference and the complacency of God's people. Edmund Burke, the famed British statesman, once said this, "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." Just stand by and watch. Just stand by and see people do what they want to do. For good men, just don't do anything. Just back up. He said, that's not going to work. Evil will triumph. Read the book of Judges. The Old Testament, clearly our God would rather forgive and restore than judge. Over and over, Israel would turn their back on their godly heritage, but they would repent and God would forgive them and restore them. But it was always conditional in the Old Testament. If you will repent, if you will change, if you will abandon your rebellion, then I will bless you. And so we get these words from 2 Chronicles 7:14 that you've heard over and over. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. It's a condition. I don't know if you know this or not, but the solution is not with politicians. It's not with organizations. It's not found in health care or welfare. The solution is with God's people turning back to God. You and me. If the culture saw that happen, a revival would break out like we've never seen in the world before. If just God's people would do what God says and turn back to God. If every Christian would just bring one person with them to Christ. If every Christian in the country would just get one person and lead them to Christ, it would be a radical change in our country. We would find a restoration of God's blessings on a massive approach. So what can we do? How can we be proactive in this? Is it going to require us to march or boycott? Nothing wrong with that. We just read about that in the First Amendment, to peaceably assemble. But let me give you some things every Christian must do to uphold the sacred trust that godly men and women stood for down through the history of America. So what's our duty as citizen Christians? Well, we must pray for our government. We must pray for our government. You know how easy it is to criticize our government? We need to pray for our government. 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 3 says, I exhort therefore that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving thanks be made for all men, for kings and all those in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. You want to live a peaceable life, a quiet life? You want the fires of America to settle back down? Pray for your leaders. Pray for your president. Pray for your governor. Pray for your senators and representatives, your legislators, your county commission, your city council members, our mayors. Pray for them. Ask God, if they are not, ask Him to lead them to Christ. How awesome would it be for some of our politicians to get saved? Plead with God for revival for our nation. Don't just complain about it. Don't just march about it. Pray. Listen to what Proverbs 21:1 says. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, He turns it wherever He wants. God can affect any politician, any leader. Just pray for them.